The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
A very scary experience.
You know, God is a solution. God, the 12 step.
I like where he's going here.
Helps the community grow, helps us grow.
Monty has done a phenomenal job.
Lack of open-mindedness.
And you're talking about taking people through a spiritual process and getting them into recovery.
Thanks, Monty, and thanks for all your support.
We need spirituality to make this thing work long term.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
And now, broadcasting on location somewhere in the vast expanse of the Pacific Northwest, it's the over-opinionated 12-stepologist, the Monty'man.
Well, welcome aboard, one and all, to another fine episode of the Take 12 Recovery radio show, broadcasting to you and for you on all major podcasting platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, or if you would like to, simply visit us at youtube.com/Monty Meyer, MontyMeyer. And you can subscribe there for fun and for free. How y'all doing, guys? There's Denver.
Howdy.
Howdy. There's Derek.
Good morning.
There's Dave.
What is a 12-stepologist?
A 12-stepologist is somebody who studies the 12 steps.
Ology.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. An overly opinionated 12-stepologist.
Overly opinionated.
Is the rest of us. And Roger McDermott is on the phone. Hey, Roger.
Good morning from Southern California, where it is rainy and like wanting to be like Albany.
What?
We're glad.
Nice.
It's raining?
Yeah, I'm in the total mood for you guys because I feel like I'm there.
You're part of us today.
Sweet.
Yes,
Good,
indeed.
good deal. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad it's raining for once down there. The topic this week: when friends relapse. We're going to be talking about that today. We got a lot of stuff to cover on this show. Particularly one of my favorite pieces that we do here.
And now it's time for the Monty'man's weekly whine.
It's been a long couple
Because he
weeks.
always has something to whine about.
Stop crying.
Okay.
Yes, indeedy. When I go to the movies, I enjoy the previews. I kind of like them. Now, I went to a movie last night, and none of the previews really made me want to go see any of the movies that they were previewing. But that's usually rare. And a lot of times I don't see the movies that I see the previews for that I say I want to see, because it just doesn't work out. But I enjoy that. I don't really care about the whatever the thing focus, whatever doohickey they do before the previews, you know. But after the screen opens up a little wider, you know, they pull the curtains back all the way and they start doing the previews. I enjoy the previews. What I do not enjoy is people talking at full volume during the previews, or they don't do it during the show. Why are you doing it during the previews? There's a thing on top that says, please don't text, please don't talk, don't ruin the movie. Well, it should say, don't ruin the previews or the movie, in my humble opinion. I do not appreciate people.
It is your mic today.
Can't they whisper? They're talking to full volume. Hey, Janet, pass the popcorn. Oh, get your own popcorn right behind us. I'm like, really?
Apparently, people don't put the value you do.
No, they don't.
Previews.
Ooh, good comeback.
Well, maybe you should talk to them at full volume.
Yes.
I'm not.
Please be quiet.
You know,
I'm trying to enjoy the previews.
Over opinionated.
If you do not appreciate people talking at full volume during the previews, Give me a thumbs up on the YouTube version or on the whatever Podomatic thing or the podcast. Give me a thumbs up.
This will be interesting.
Even if you don't, give us a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Improve our standing on YouTube.
Even if you don't care. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there you go. Hey, on a totally other note, and not a whine at all. Thank you to Eleanor McNally for sending in a donation all the way from Dublin, Ireland.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really cool. And remember the show we did called Pass the Potatoes?
Yeah.
Okay. I got an email from Monica McCarney she's also from Ireland. It looks like Newtown Butler Road. Oh, that's the name of the road. Monaghan, Ireland. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But anyway, Monica sent in an email. Dear Monty and the crew at Take 12, really enjoy your broadcast on YouTube and have listened for 2 years. My sobriety date is 11/9/95. I think it's a trend since the treatment center industry started that the messages in the big book have been lost, watered down. It's the same here. I suppose you're talking about in Ireland. When a group loses a step in a tradition meeting a month, it becomes a discussion and topic of the day. Mid to old timers are reluctant to say anything. A few of us are trying to get a group going, which will be a big book AA meeting. Meanwhile, we meet to do the traditions followed by the 12 concepts every month at a house. Can you imagine 1.5 hours of a topic meeting? Yeah, I've been to hundreds of those. And sometimes they can go on and on and on about nothing at all. I was at a meeting in Toms River, New Jersey in 2018, and a man joked with me saying, well, you guys must need that in Ireland. I laughed. Anyway, the All Ireland Conference, or convention as we call it, in my county town next year in Monaghan, however you pronounce it. I find it very frustrating that there are so few to work with, and the pandemic is still keeping people online, even though we've been open since September 2020, with the exception of January, February, March 21. I'm a hard-nosed big book woman, and the number of people who don't want it is staggering. They miss one session of the big book experience, no problem. Any more than that, they're out. I actually listened to a few old-time American speakers, Chuck C., Clancy I., and Johnny H. I work in healthcare management and a practicing Catholic and teach church choir. I absolutely agree with your views expressed on the Pass the Potatoes show. Far too much of wrong or evil is being seen as normal. Master of my own destiny rubbish. They forget that God is in charge. And not to sound political, mainstream news is never switched on. Headlines once a day. That's what she does. As for AA, once God is involved, it will survive. But I really don't know what kind of legacy is being left in today's times. We were told when we came into the rooms to get stuck into the literature. During lockdown, I was asked by a man in Belfast to speak at an online meeting in Washington. Nervous, but did it. Connor F. brought AA to Dublin. Can't think of the year. Ireland was the first country that AA was brought to by the American AAs. So I just wanted again to say thanks for all the good work you guys are doing. And that comes from Monica. Monica, thanks for the email. Yeah.
What a great letter. That's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. So some of the same concerns about today's 12-step fellowships also in Ireland. So we're not alone, but keep coming back. Because it can't work if you don't come back, right? Keep coming back, it works. Oh, well, if you don't come back, if you don't come and share your experience, strength, and hope, and be part of the solution, then it's kind of on you. But sounds like she's still doing the deal, even with some of her frustrations. So, Monica, thank you. Eleanor, thank you as well. That was very, very nice. So if you'd like to send us an email, our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. All righty. Coming up on the 20th, And I think we're still a go for that.
Yes, we are.
Right?
I confirmed again last week. So
cool.
Or this week.
Our guest will be Stephanie Kuntz. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's the book, Wretch Like Me. And this is a story of her 15-year struggle with bulimia and her recovery. She's also an author of another book. We'll talk about that one too when she comes on the show. So that'll be on the 20th. That's Dave's show, Solutions for Life today. And Stephanie's going to be our guest. And Dave hooked us up with Stephanie, so that's going to be fun. Yeah, good deal. If you missed the show on addiction in the world of sports, you can go back to the archives, go to take12radio.com and click on any of the podcasting or the YouTube link. And you can listen to my interview with KTVU Channel 2, Mr. Mark Ibanez, sports director for that station for 43 years, winner of 4 Emmys and nominated for 16. Talking about drugs in the world of sports. Interestingly enough, he mentioned, I will just tell you this, he mentioned that because of the Goldfish Bowl that sports celebrities are in, it seems like the drug epidemic is worse in the world of sports, but really not that much. It's pretty much the same. It's just that they're highlighted so much. But really interesting show, really informative for you to check out. So that is that there. I wanted to share this with you. Stupid gadgets. We should do a stupid gadget segment once in a while. If you see it on YouTube, you see this lovely little red phone. If you're not watching on YouTube, it's a phone receiver and sender. What do you call that? Speaker, I guess, right? But on the end of it, it plugs into your iPhone or Android, right? So you
old school.
So you can be a president?
Why? So you plug this into your phone. You plug this into your phone.
That's for the old timers.
And then you can hold it like an old time receiver.
Yeah.
But you can hold your phone up to your ear like an old time receiver. So I don't understand.
It doesn't work the same. Plus, how many times have people held their phone up to their ear and accidentally hit a button or disconnected the line? You won't do that with that.
Probably not. Anyway, I tried it. It works.
Wow. I wonder if that's illegal driving down the road in your vehicle.
Yeah, huh?
Well, people had
sure. You can take a bungee and attach it to your head and then call it hands-free.
It's distracting me. I don't know if I see you with it.
Right.
Well, people had car phones for years, though, and they would talk on them, right?
Yeah.
Huh. Did you ever have a car phone, Roger?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I had, back in the day, I had a briefcase phone.
Ooh, Miami Vice.
Yeah, it was really cool, man. And it weighed about 50 pounds.
Right.
It seems like. So,
I was thinking more.
It was the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Don Adams, I was thinking of.
No advice.
Get Smart.
Yeah, it was along the lines of Get Smart, exactly
Yeah,
right.
Go Gadget. All right. Okay. The topic, when friends relapse. When we come back from the break, don't go away. Check this out. As folks in recovery, do you ever feel like your circumstances are controlling the way you act, think, and feel? I mean, why can't other people just behave and grow up? If everyone would just look at life the way we do, all would be well, right? Yes, we have all felt this way a time or two, but what if this is a common issue? I mean, what if you're constantly being let down by others and you seem to get knocked off your emotional balance beam time and time again? Well, 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety, the brand new book by popular recovery author Dr. Alan Berger, will help you get unstuck from the emotional dependency that we can all fall into while working our recovery programs. In this book, you will learn the therapeutic value of self-awareness and recover your true self as you experience emotional sobriety. For an autographed copy of 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety, visit www.abphd.com. This book is also available on Amazon. Feeling stuck in your recovery? Why not get unstuck today with 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety?
Think I'm gonna relapse, said I'd never be back. Sick of obsessing over everything that we had. Lock me in the house, never let me leave. Keep me from my car, going hide away my keys. Yeah, I think I'm gonna relapse, check me in a rehab. Detox my brain, get her out my veins. I need more than
Mr. Chase McDaniel with his song Relapse. The topic this week on the show is when friends relapse. So I want to be very clear here. There are different ways to approach the situation depending on who you are and what part you play within the recovery community. Today, I'm not talking so much about if you're a sponsor. I'm talking about if you're a friend or if you're a family member of. Now, one of the most neglected chapters in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is called Working with Others. And there seems to be a lot of confusion about how do you work with others in that particular 12-step fellowship. And there shouldn't be, because there's a whole chapter on it that gives step-by-step directions on exactly how to successfully work with other alcoholics as far as Alcoholics Anonymous goes. If you don't know how to do that, read that chapter. It's very clear, and it's for my money, it really is right on the ball. And there's just a lot of suggestions in there when a person's ready, when they're not ready, when they relapse, how to leave the literature with them, all sorts of just amazing stuff. But I don't want to address sponsorship today. I want to address when your friends relapse. You know, there's some things that you may be tempted to do that maybe not be the wise thing to do. You may think it's helpful. You may think they deserve a good swift kick in the butt, and you're ready to read them the riot act. You may feel like they just need a hug and be told that it's okay. All those things in the right timing may be fine, but are they always helpful? And so one of the things I do want to point out, and I'm going to have Dave read. Dave brought a reading with him today, and I think it's really appropriate. One of the things that we do notice, now keep in mind, I want to make it very clear, we here at Take 12 Recovery Radio do not believe that meeting makers make it. That is, if that's all you're doing is going to meetings, drinking bad coffee, complaining about your day, if that's all you're doing, you're probably not an addict or an alcoholic if you're staying sober, and you're probably not staying sober if you are, if that's all you're doing. But having said that, it is very interesting to note that certainly is one of the first things to go when people are in pre-relapse, or what I consider actual relapse, because I think you relapse before you actually use. That one of the first things to go is staying accountable, staying plugged into a fellowship of people that are like-minded. That's one of the first things that seems to fall off the rails. And so, Dave, you want to share that, because that is really poignant. This reading that he brought in today that I think contributes to relapse many times. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, this is out of actually today's reading. It's funny how
how things work out, how they just fall in line. Yeah.
God has a hand in things working out. This is from Just for Today, the NA Just for Today meditation book, June 13th. It says, the program works a miracle in our lives. We became free to live. Basic text, page 11. Most of us, if we've been in recovery for any length of time at all, have heard some members complaining in the meeting about being terribly overworked, too busy for meetings or sponsorship or other activities. In fact, we may have been the complaining member. The days seem so full: job, family, and friends, meetings, activities, sponsorship, step work, etc. There just aren't enough hours in the day. How many times have we said that, right?
Yeah.
The member complains, to get everything done and meet everyone's demands on my time. when this happens, usually there's soft laughter from some of the other members, probably members who have planned to grumble about the same sort of thing. Laughter stems from our recognition that we are complaining about the miracle of the life that is ours today. Not so long ago, few of us were capable of having any of these quote-unquote problems in our life. We devoted all of our energy to maintaining our active addiction. Today we have full lives complete with all the feelings and problems that go with living in reality. Just for today, I will remember that my life is a miracle. Instead of resenting how busy I am, I will be thankful my life is so full.
Yeah, so one of the things I remember my sponsor saying when we were talking about when you're new in recovery years ago, he told me a story about a guy. He asked the guy. He said, "Do you have to work right now?" And the guy said, "No, actually, I don't. Financially, I'm set. I don't have to work." He says, "Great. So you can focus on your recovery 100% right now. You can put everything into it." He goes, "Yes, absolutely. Awesome." He said within a couple of weeks, the guy came back to him and said, "Hey, I got a job." He goes, "You did?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, it's like 60 hours a week. I'm getting all this overtime and everything." He said, and then like a week later, he said, "Hey, I got a truck. I bought a truck." It wasn't long after that. It was, I got a girlfriend. And then the last time he talked to him was, "I got drunk." So the guy didn't have to do all this stuff, but especially guys, we get a lot of our self-worth from our accomplishments, right? So what he did was he did the very thing that was suggested that he not do so he could focus on his program, and he went back out because he no longer had time, like the reading you were saying. He now had so much work to do. He now was in a relationship. He had to maintain this old truck that he was constantly working on, right? And he didn't really have time. He started not showing up to the meetings as often. He wasn't picking up the phone as often, right? And he went back out. So what do we do when it's a friend? Somebody that we love deeply or we maybe even admire, and they seem, and that's a big word, they seem to have all their priorities together, and then all of a sudden something happens and they've gone back out and they're not coming back in. How do you deal with that? One of the things I think that you don't do is you don't attack them. I know we may want to, especially if it's a relative. What's wrong with you, Johnny? I mean, haven't you picked up any tools by now? Aren't you applying the principles in these steps? You didn't call your sponsor? I don't know about you, but if I'm going to drink, I'm probably not going to call my sponsor. If I've made that decision already, but we do that, what the heck's going on? I don't get it. You know what? I'm done with you. I don't think that's the solution. I think you can have a firm hand, you can set boundaries, but I think attacking a person and their character, I don't think that works. But then the flip side is, "Oh, Johnny, it's okay. Just keep coming back. It's all right." Well, I'm going to put this out here. I don't think relapse is ever all right. I don't believe that relapse, and I get so irritated when people say, "Well, relapse is part of recovery. It's just part of recovery. It's going to happen. You're going to face it. It's going to be part of your journey. You might as well prepare for it." No, it's never a part of recovery until it happens. Now, once it's happened, it can be part of your recovery journey, right?
Yes.
But to set somebody up and say, "Well, relapse is just part of recovery," I think that's the wrong thing to tell somebody, and at least for me, that just gave me an out. But
usually that starts from treatment programs.
Is that where we get that? Relapse is part of recovery?
That's where I've always heard it.
Yeah.
Well, originally, it's where I've always heard it, and then I hear people repeating it in the rooms. I'm like you. I always say relapse isn't a part of recovery, but it if it does happen, it can be a part of your recovery, but it isn't, because the only purpose really when you hear it, because I share with people, like sometimes that you hear that from a treatment program, and part of that is I hate to say this, but it just seems like a treatment sets, not all treatments, but some portion of them set people up for failure by telling them these things, or giving them statistics like only 4% will be successful. That's what I heard in treatment.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, okay, like, why are you telling us this?
Right.
Like, I don't like, I already know statistics, right? And they can be manipulated. So I'm not going to be part of the people that fail. And when I went back to do meetings at that same treatment center, I told everybody every Saturday that you don't have to be that statistics. Everyone in this room can succeed if they want to.
I've actually heard people say in meetings and in treatment, you know what, Joe, you're probably not going to make it. Why would you tell somebody that? I mean, I understand saying, this is what the statistics say, but guess what? And we've said this before in where we work. You can change that.
Right.
You can be that change. You don't have to fall into that statistic.
I have that same conversation at least 5 times a week.
Wow.
That are based basically on that thing I just read, because people get into recovery and they basically think I have to fix everything right now. Right?
Yeah.
I've got, my mortgage thing squared away where I've made an agreement with them, and, I've got things sorted out, so I'm not going to go into foreclosure or things like to that nature. And I got these bills, and I got this, and then, funky insurance, right? Because they aren't paying for my treatment or whatever the scenario may be. So now I have to do all this extra to pay my bills. And I said, well, how much time are you spending on your recovery? Well, I'm coming here and I'm doing 2 sessions or 2 1-hour groups a week, usually orientation and sexually transmitted disease, the same 2 groups every week, which you're not really learning anything after 8 weeks.
Right.
And so what else are you doing? Well, nothing. I'm working. I got 2 jobs now. I gotta make sure these things are taken care of.
Right.
And it's like, well, and I tell them, I said the quickest way to a relapse, and I've been doing this for, myself for almost 18 years. I've been working in the field for 12 years, and every single time, never fails, except maybe that 99.9% of the time this happens is people fail because they're not working on the recovery. They're working on everything else but their recovery, and then soon, maybe not right away, it leads right back to a relapse. Doesn't happen to every single person. Like I said, there's that 0.1%, which I hope you are, but statistics usually say that that's not the case.
Yeah.
So, and encouraging you to add something into your, I'm gardening with my significant other.
Yeah, what are you gardening?
Well, but that's the thing is if both of you are relapsing or both of you are in your addiction, you both kind of gotta, and I tell this to everybody. I say you gotta make your recovery your most important thing in your life, right? And your spirituality, if that's important to you, which I hope it is, should be right up there at the top of the list. Because if you're not taking care of yourself and your recovery, the rest of it's just going to fall away.
It's going to fall apart. And so, okay, so we know we have, all of us here and Roger on the phone, we all have enough experience to know what to do to prevent relapse. But when it happens to somebody we love, when it happens to a friend, how do we respond to that? Roger, chime in here.
So my message to anybody, whether it be friend, family, or even sponsee, is let's get together and let's talk about what happened. I love him. I love him with the truth. I come alongside of him and I say, look, I've made every mistake you've made, but I haven't relapsed. So let's talk about what happened. And maybe we can identify the issues that led to you making a poor decision. And they certainly don't need to be beat up. I mean, they're doing that to themselves typically.
Right.
And if they have a will to really go to any length to stay sober, that's always the question I ask them. And then it's like, well, what are you willing to do? Because I just tell them what happened to me and what I did, and I'm there to support them. And but it has to be a priority, like Dave said. It has to be the most important thing in their life at this moment, because nothing else will work if they're drunk or loaded. It just won't. And we know what the end result looks like. So yeah, I love them. I love them up, and I try to encourage them. And I tell them to get back to going to meetings and get with your sponsor, get into the big book, pray about everything and worry about nothing, and do the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's talk in 30 days, or let's talk in 5 days, and tell me what it's like.
Yeah.
It's like the contrary action thing. It's like you think everything is more important, but maybe it's not. Maybe the most important thing right now is to really focus on your recovery.
Yeah. So one of the things that is, I think, is vitally important is, Dave talks about this all the time. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Well, that's on the side of the family and friends too. I mean, if you're going to be associated with, hang out with, be buddies with, chumming around with somebody in recovery, and let's say you don't need recovery. Let's say you're not an addict or an alcoholic or dealing with life-controlling issues of any kind, really. And I guess, affectionately we call those folks normies. I don't think there are any, but let's say you're one of those people. Okay, what is it about your life, though? Because I ask people all the time, especially family members that are upset because Johnny relapsed. I say, well, let's don't talk about Johnny for right now. Let's talk about you. How are you doing? Well, I'm an emotional wreck. I can't even say his name without tearing up. I'm just, I can't even go to work, especially if it's a parent or a sibling or something. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to set boundaries in your life that are putting your physical, mental, spiritual health, I'm sorry, but before Johnny. You're not going to, what is that thing when you go and you fly, right? And we've all flown. What do they tell you? What do the stewardesses tell you? When the oxygen thing comes down, you got to take that thing before you help somebody else, right? Because if you're not breathing, you're not going to help the passenger next to you. You've got to take care of yourself. And so I'm telling you right now, folks, if you are devastated by somebody else's relapse, a friend's relapse, a loved one's relapse, and you've become dysfunctional and you're just curled up in a ball and you just can't handle life, there's probably some work you got to do. And that's when we lead into this whole topic of emotional sobriety. One of the resources I want to give everybody, if you go to abphd.com, that's abphd.com, and you click on recorded shows there, you'll see a whole series on emotional sobriety by Dr. Alan Berger and myself. You can also visit us at take12radio.com and click on recovery workshops, and then click on step-by-step toward emotional sobriety. Same shows. And what you'll find there is ways that you can stay centered on your emotional balance beam and not get knocked off of it because of a friend's relapse. It's vitally important that we recognize that we can be in deep weeds with our issues if we don't know how to respond to a friend's relapse. One of the most common things that people do is when a friend or relative relapse, we want to control them. And that doesn't work. It just doesn't. So I want to ask Denver. Denver, we've known guys that have gone back out. Some of them.
We've known me.
We've known you that have gone back out.
I have.
Yeah.
I've relapsed.
Right.
So
how did that go? How were you treated? What was your experience by other people around you when you relapsed?
Honestly, the folks in recovery, most of them, a large percentage of them, have treated me with kindness and I believe understanding. A lot of times my family, who doesn't understand my addiction,
right,
has been a little harsher on me. And that it's hard to stomach that when you're fighting it yourself. You're going, I don't know why I did it again.
Mm-hmm.
I went out again. So it's the folks in recovery, like I said, most of them, there's been a couple bad experiences, like you're never going to make it when you said that.
Yeah.
I went to a meeting once and he said, you're never going to make it. He spouted off some stuff, and I never went back to that meeting. It left a sour taste in my stomach because maybe I wasn't going to make it with what he said there. But I didn't need that kind of encouragement. It is nice. I don't need to be babied or anything else. We all like that easier way, but there's not an easy way to addiction. I've struggled with it my whole life, and it's easier nowadays.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's still there. It could haunt me.
Mm-hmm.
The folks through the program, or through my travels in this circle of people, I appreciate the support I get. It's not a negative thing. They're there. They're not going to hold my hand, but they do understand. So I don't really know much past to say that. The folks in my recovery circle are supportive. Mm-hmm. They understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better than getting beat up, but also it's they're firm too when need be.
Right.
You've been there.
Yeah. Sure. Firm and never harsh. We don't have to be harsh.
Thank you. That's nicely put.
Yeah. Sometimes, Derek, you experienced relapse. How were you treated?
A lot like with what Denver has shared. The people that I had been most intimate with and could relate well to were not just sympathetic, but compassionate in the midst of restoration and helping, establishing boundaries, not enabling, not trying to control, but knowing in the depth of my heart through right communication that, if it was just as easy as stopping doing what I hated to do, I would be sober.
If you could have, you would have, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And so understanding that, there's a mysterious thing in the midst of relapse, and it's a multifaceted thing, and it's just not quite so simple when we think about the chemistry of the mind. I've been thinking a lot about neuroplasticity and the renewing of the mind, and for me that has taken time, actually years. And so I've been treated well. I've also been shunned too, where others have established that unenforceable rule, expectations that in the moment I wasn't able to live up to. And so in terms of letting them down, there had been some distance, and it's taken time to restore those relationships, but God is good and faithful. And so I'm always reminded as a friend to those who are struggling in relapse through my own experience, what I really need in terms of being a right friend is the wisdom, the discernment, and the knowledge of God, because I think each individual recovery and person is uniquely different. And the relapse is the same, right? But how I treat them, what's appropriate, and how I can better be a friend and serve them in their personal context, I think is super important as well. So
Yeah. I think there can be an art to this, but I think it's absolutely essential that as friends of folks that are in relapse, and when I say in relapse, maybe they're not using yet, but they're in that relapse mode, that we be able to separate the addict from the individual, the disease from the person's best self, if you will. And that's hard because we live in a culture that fights against that. You know, you wouldn't get mad at somebody if their cancer came back, right? Well, so the most common response to that is, well, that's different. They don't have a choice if they have cancer and it returns. Well, that tells me you don't understand the nature of addiction.
Yes. Right.
And so what's vitally important for people, and I know people are frustrated right now because they're going, no, it was their choice. They decided to do it. And you know, they wanted to hurt me. And if they cared about me, they wouldn't have, and on and on and on. But you really need to, if you want to be of maximum service to the friends in your life and the people you love that are in recovery or dealing with substance use disorder or other behavioral addictions, you really need to do some homework on what addiction is. I think that would be very helpful. Yeah. One of the books that my wife, she read it several times and ended up throwing it across the room several times, but it was one of the most helpful books she ever read. And she praises it today. And that's Melody Beatty's book, Codependent No More. She read that book, and I mean, it taught her a ton about me. She also read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which taught her a ton about me. If you're going to be a friend or a family member that is truly invested in another person, you should want to get to know as much about them as you can, you know, and so that when this kind of thing happens, you're not completely blindsided. You go, you know, I get it. I don't like it. It's not good. Maybe it didn't even have to happen if the person had done this instead of that, turned left instead of right. But this is where we are now. What do we do with this now? You know, and so I think it's vitally important that if you're listening and you're wondering, what do I do with these feelings I'm having towards the person that I love, you need to learn about what they're going through. One of the ways you can do that is go to an Al-Anon family group. But you need to meeting shop, just as there are AA meetings and NA meetings and CR meetings that aren't really meetings, right? There are ones that really are, that really follow the literature and follow the program. Find an Al-Anon family group that follows the program of Al-Anon. You start attending Celebrate Recovery, because that is dealing with all sorts of hurts, habits, and hang-ups. You know, if you are a loved one of somebody who is an active addict or alcoholic, you've got some issues to deal with, because it's an emotionally destructive, you know, thing that's happening to you, the feelings you're going through. So my recommendation is that you need to get some help. You need to get some support. But the kickback oftentimes is, he's the horse's patootie. Why do I need to do any work?
I know why.
Why?
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, you know, the only thing you have to change is everything.
Right.
That applies to family members as well.
Yes.
It doesn't it?
And so I was just trying to figure this out in my head, but I would have to say, maybe some people will disagree with me, maybe even some in this room, but I believe that it's between 30 and 50% of the problems in an addict's life have to do with the family.
I would agree with that.
Or relationships.
Or more.
Or more.
Or
well,
more. Yeah.
I was trying to be kind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the addict has to take responsibility for their own actions. So I would say 50% at least falls on them. Yeah. But that is right where you were talking about the family being educated, or because we're, you know, Judge told me one time that not knowing whether or not my license was suspended is just ignorance. Like, I should know, right? Simple things like, well, I don't know about addiction. Well, that's just ignorance, because you're not taking the time, because our society we all want things in 10-second or less bites, sound bites, and we don't want to have to make any effort. Like, it's not my problem. it's Johnny's problem, right?
Yeah.
Why should I have to put in effort? But you're describing how it affects the other person. Well, obviously, if it's affecting you that bad, where you can't go to work, you need to do something about your own side of the street.
Yeah.
Or thinking that because Johnny goes to program, for 3 months or 12 months, that they're cured and they're not going to have any of their problems because now they say they found Jesus, right?
Right.
That's just the beginning.
Right.
That's just they're just getting to start the program, and the other thing that I goes through my brain is like you see those commercials on TV about depression, right? You should just smile more, right? And then the guy's he doesn't say it, but it says not helpful.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Things like that. Well,
just get over it.
Sometimes someone saying go to a meeting or call your sponsor is not helpful either.
Right.
Like I agree with like what Roger says is it doesn't matter who you are. Friend, foe, or family, I'm going to treat you exactly the same way. I want to find out what's going on. Let's get together. Let's talk about what you're going through and go from there. Because if I'm just telling somebody to go to a meeting or call their sponsor, then I'm becoming part of the problem in my view.
I've heard that same thing happen when people respond and say, well, what step are you on? Well, first of all, I haven't been implementing the principles and the steps. I already know that. I'm beating myself up over it. What step am I on? None, dude.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's almost like writing a script.
What step are you on?
Yeah, what step are you on, man? Yeah. It's like writing a script and saying, okay, go away, get better. Yeah. It may be true, but is it helpful? So you're right. But I think that comes with family members and friends that aren't educated, that don't know. They don't know what to say. And so
sometimes
that's
even
the pat
educated
answer.
people say the same things.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
they're whatever in the middle of something or whatever,
Right. Right.
Hey, Monty.
Yeah.
This is Roger.
Hi, Roger.
Who's Roger?
Roger who?
Hey. Yeah. I lived up close and personal with situations like this because I watched my wife die from alcoholism.
Right.
And it's a long history. We don't have time to talk about all that. But clearly, I abandoned my wife and my two little girls for 11 years. And during those years, she grew up in an alcoholic family with a lot of abuse from her father and her mother. And then she married me. And that was, that was a challenge in itself. Little did I know. And then leaving her for 11 years with her to raise the two girls without me being anywhere. I mean, I was around to pay bills, but that's about it. And I wasn't even good at that. When I came back, I still wasn't sober. We cohabitated. And then I got sober in 96. She died in 2013. And there was one weekend where she asked to go to detox, and she did that. But she was so broken inside from guilt and shame and all the things that had transpired. It was really hard for her to connect with Alcoholics Anonymous. And I must admit that I went through every imaginable emotion, from anger, why can't you did it, I did it, why can't, all the stuff, till I got to the point where all I could do was be there and love her. There was seemingly nothing else I could do. She was beyond human aid. And the good thing is that she's with God in heaven. She was a Christian before I was. But this illness, this disease, it literally took her so far down that she couldn't get out of it. And when she died, she had a smile on her face. And so the whole emotional sobriety and the whole thing of how do you treat people in the middle of their illness is it's powerful stuff, man. I've been there. I did that.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of compassion, a lot of prayer, a lot of surrender, and then you just do the best you can do. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. that there are people listening right now that are dealing with this. I received several emails and several texts when I posted that this was going to be the topic. A lot of private text messages. And I want to talk to you, those of you who text me and email me, for a second. Let's review real quick. You need to take care of yourself. You can't help the other individual if you're not healthy. If you're out running around trying to chase them down, trying to find out what bar they're hanging out at, trying to rescue them from the streets, there's a real good possibility that it's going to end up worse for you than them. We've seen that happen a lot. If you try to rescue them and give them a soft place to land, the last thing, at least for me, I know in my active addiction, the last thing that was helpful for me was somebody giving me a soft place to land. And somebody patting me on the backside and saying, it's okay. It's just a relapse. It's okay. No, you need to take this thing seriously. So giving a soft place to land isn't the answer either. Being firm but not harsh. You may be tempted to be harsh because you're so ticked off right now. Remember, it's okay to be ticked at the addict, but remember your loved one's asleep. Particularly when we put mind-altering chemicals in our body, our best thinking goes night-night. And that's when we say the addict is running the show. It's not your best self. So that person, you can't talk to them right now anyway, if they're using. Some resources for you. Again, the Emotional Sobriety Workshops by Dr. Alan Berger, called Step by Step Toward Emotional Sobriety. Understanding Intervention with one of the nation's leading interventionists, Tony Messbarger. That is also on our website. So if you are thinking about hiring an interventionist or engaging in an intervention, first of all, let me tell you, don't try to do that on your own. If you're not somebody who is educated in that arena, do not try to do that. You will mess things up royally. There is a way to go about that. And it doesn't have to be a nightmare. Understanding Intervention by Tony Messbarger. Our recovery resources page. We have tons of recovery resources on our recovery resources page. Al-Anon family groups, the chapter Working with Others in the Big Book of AA. You can get to all this stuff by going to take12radio.com and clicking on recovery workshops or recovery resources. You can also email us at take12radio@comcast.net. We're going to close out the show with a song called Prodigal by Stephanie Havoc. Before we do that, though, I'd like to get some closing thoughts from our co-host. Roger, you first.
I just want to share with anybody who's listening that's struggling in this area. It's go to God and pray a lot and be the most loving, kind, but forceful person you can be to come alongside that person and be a source of encouragement, but also don't buy into their whatever's going on. You can be firm, be fair, but be loving and kind.
Yeah, good word. Dave.
Pray, listen, pray some more.
Amen.
Yeah, amen to that. Derek.
I thought I'd switch it up just a little bit, maybe speak to the individual that's contemplating relapse or in relapse. In our meetings in Sweet Home, a good friend used to say, anybody can get sober. It's the staying sober that takes the work, right? And in the midst of my own relapse, the proverbs that I just had clung to and continue to promote is that though a righteous person falls 7 times, they get back up again. And relapse, if you're out there, is not your identity. You're not tagged by that. Relapse doesn't have to predict your future. If that's you, get back on the wagon, start doing the right next best thing, and know that you're loved, and it doesn't have to be a part of your story. Move forward in faith, and victory is in Christ Jesus.
Yeah. Amen. Denver, closing thoughts.
We're going to bring it back to prayer, both ends, the taker and the receiver.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
It does. I had a lot of people pray for me.
Amen.
And I appreciate it.
Amen.
So I want to say this, that when we relapse, when we catch the ball outside the end zone, we get the game the way it is, not the way it was. That's just part of the story, right? The good news is you can get it back better than it was, depending on your choices. If I've gone back out and I've come back in, and now I have some changes, some people are holding me accountable, and they've set some boundaries, and they're willing to work with me, but they're saying things like, okay, this is what we're going to do a little differently now. You've come to me, you've asked for help, you want to get back on the wagon, and that person has my permission to give me instruction. If that's you, follow their instruction. I know of a situation recently where this happened to somebody, and he came back and he was willing to follow instruction, except that instruction that involved a higher power in a dress. So you're telling me to break up with my girlfriend? No, I'm telling you that right now it's not a healthy situation for you to be in this relationship. If she's the one for you, she'll wait. But right now you need to work on you. Well, I can't do it without her. So now the guy's gone. I've pulled that number before. You know better than me, and I'm coming to you for help. But you can't tell me what to do in this area of my life. Well, if I was so smart, then why did I go back out, and why did I come to you for help if I was so smart, right? So we call those reservations. If you've got a reservation and you've got a stipulation, well, you can help me in all aspects of my life except for this one, you're probably not going to do well. We have to resign ourselves to the fact that when we go back out, that we are willing, we're honest, open-minded, and willing to do whatever it takes, right, to continue in our relationship, developing this relationship with this power greater than us, and to utilize the tools of recovery. And that means I need to take everything I thought I know and hit the pause button. And if you're somebody that is working with somebody, not as a sponsor, but just as a loved one, you've got to set your boundaries and stick to them. You got to stick to them. If you bend, let me tell you, the addict is very manipulative, and they'll see that flexibility a mile away, right? Remember, you're not talking to that person's best self. You're talking to their addict. The great news is relapse isn't okay, but people do come back from relapses and they rocket into the fourth dimension and they do awesome work. Yeah. Well, the closing song this week by Stephanie Havoc, entitled Prodigal. Here's Stephanie.
The plans you prodigal child. Your heart's afraid and your mind plays cruel games. You're running circles around the same old things. Where do you go from here? You are a brave one, child. And don't you forget, I have called you mine, and I'm not finished yet. Where will you go from here? Oh, come back home. I never stopped waiting for you. Come back home. Prodigal child. Oh, won't you come back home? I never stopped waiting for you. Come back home. Prodigal child. It'll be like you had never gone away. Like the sun coming out after the pouring rain. Oh, it'll be like you had never gone away. Like the sun coming out after the pouring rain. It'll be like you had never gone away. Come back home. I never stopped waiting for you. Come back home. Prodigal child. Won't you come back home? I never stopped waiting for you. Come back home. Prodigal child.
Stephanie Havoc, Prodigal. Listen, if you're listening and you're within the sound of my voice, and that is you, hear me. The only time you fail is the very last time you try. Come back home. Relapse is never part of recovery until it happens. What are you going to do with it? Until next time, this is the Monty'man, along with the rest of the Take 12 Recovery radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.